Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, Dr. Jasmeet Gulati. Good afternoon, Ms. Shivani Rajesh. We are now at the competition stage. The teams would be joining in every 10 minutes. They do not have any more time. Only 10 minutes per team, after which, after the completion of 10 minutes, they'll be removed from the meet. So that is how we are going to start. Every team is going to join in after 10 minutes. Ma'am, in case the teams join late, they do not have any more time. Punctuality is the essence of this competition, so they will have to manage in the 9 minutes.
All right, thank you. Who's managing? Is there somebody managing the time?
Yes, ma'am, there would be a timer on the screen. At 5 minutes, they would have one warning bell, and at 1 minute, they would have another warning bell, after which they would be given no warning and they would be removed.
All right. And the first we going to start with 4.
Yes, the first would be 4 according as per the scoring sheet. The 4 would go first, the first 6 teams, and then against.
Oh, great.
OCC 12, please start. Your timer has already started.
Uh, I would like to confirm if we are audible as well as visible.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you're audible as well.
Thank you. Uh, a good day to Your Excellency, the Prime Minister. We are here to brief you on certain issues that you may know are plaguing the nation. For example, the uh, proposed accession to the World Trade Organization of our nation of Newland. Uh, we are here to kind of appraise you of various issues and solutions to it. You may be knowing about the proposed debate which was accepted by the chair of the Newland Coalition for a Better World on the issue of the accession to the World Trade Organization. I and my colleague here, we will be briefing you on the general political as well as legal issues that will accompany our accession to the World Trade Organization. So I will be beginning with the general political issues. Now we speculate that you shall be questioned on what is the point of accession to the World Trade Organization, that we will be squandering our sovereignty. uh, I think and we think that it is in the interest, it is in the uh, interest of Newland to accede to the World Trade Organization precisely because of a few things. Firstly, is that it leads to free flow of advanced technology from advanced nations to developing nations. Now, as we all know, Newland is a lower middle income nation. And as a result of this, we are unable to compete with the world, and our people are unable to be at par with the people of the world because of this. And globalization, i.e., joining the World Trade Organization, will enable parity in world income and in income rates in the world. So our people will be at par with the world when it comes to income. Now, what this will in turn do is help in increasing consumption. And increasing consumption will also increase the standards of living in our nation. So the standards of living in Newland will be at par with the world. The second issue that has come to our attention is about the toy and steel industry, that it will benefit this industry. There is a contention raised that it will not benefit the toy and steel industry, it is just for multinational, which is not true. We believe that our industry has potential to challenge global giants in the toy manufacturing and steel industry. And our industry will compete with international markets. Our exports will compete with international markets. I would also like to quote the example of the nation of Belarus. And once Belarus went global, $1.3 billion in revenue was earned by it just from the exports, just from the imports of goods from around the world. Another issue also is about the destruction of culture, and that it will destroy jobs, that it will destroy environment. I believe that globalization and acceding to the WTO will actually help cultural integration. And cultural integration in the sense that our culture will be exposed to the world. And exposing our culture to the world will mean that in turn, the world, the thoughts and the modern thoughts, we will be in sync with them. And global products and our people will be exposed to the so-called Americanization. So we will be at par with the standards of living and the standards of consumption in the world. To conclude, I would like to say that when our nation accedes to the World Trade Organization, it will be the first step for Newland to become a global economic force. Now, I would like my colleague to please appraise His Excellency about the legal issues.
Excellency, I would be dealing with the legal issues which would be pertaining to this World Trade Organization and demonstration which had taken place. The first issue is whether the World Trade Organization encompasses all the World Trade Organization, or there are more laws, laws and the right about the agreement, World Trade Organization agreement. So to start with, there is one principle called principle of single undertaking, which usually simply says that virtually every item of negotiation is a part and whole of the package, and it cannot be separated or separately agreed upon. So once we exceed with the World Trade Organization agreement, it will be considered as a whole pack, and it will not be in bits and pieces. So our second legal issue, which talks about that the second issue is whether the World Trade Organization agreement will prevail over the constitution of our country and any other international organization or dialogue in which we are where we are member country. So it will firstly will prevail over constitution, and the relevant articles will be on Article 27 of Vienna Convention of Law Treaty, which talks about the internal laws and observance of the treaty become part, and they may not invoke these provisions to justify failure to comply with the World Trade Organization agreement. And secondly, the Article 16 Clause 4 of the World Trade Organization agreement says that each member state shall ensure that the conformity that the municipal laws are in conformity with the international or the World Trade Organization agreement, and it cannot be a barrier. The country cannot take a defense of not complying with the provision. And the third legal issue, which is before us, is that whether the World Trade Organization will have any impact on our courts or our So first of all, we'll have in our judiciary or at courts, there is a dispute mechanism, what will organizing dispute mechanism which has been placed for a dispute between the parties. So firstly, Article 4 and 5, 4 of the World Trade Organization, which talks about the bilateral consultation and the Article 5 talks about the mediation and conciliation, which is there are no parity between. And in case the consultation fee, then if we can appeal it within 60 days to the general dispute settlement body, and the judgment of dispute settlement body can be thereafter challenged under Article 17 to 24 of the World Trade Organization Appellate Board. The order passed by the board is binding, and non-compliance by members shall be shall in such situations shall enforce sanctions.
So I hope that Your Excellency is satisfied with our briefing, and we hope you have a good debate and you are well versed with the issues at hand. Thank you.
Thank you, team. Now the next team would join in. Team OCC 11, please begin. Your timer has started.
Hello, ma'am. Today's our topic is about WTO. Wait, ma'am, I will share the PPT. Ma'am, are you able to see the PPT?
Yes.
Okay. Just. So today's topic is the crisis control and direct competition. Why WTO? To arrange implementation administration. Ma'am, I will start with the issues directly. Whether the WTO agreement encompasses all WTO law or whether more to WTO law than the right and obligation set out in the WTO agreement. Yes, the WTO agreement encompasses all WTO laws. On there is more to the WTO law than the rights and obligations set out the WTO agreement. The WTO law regulates trade and relation and dispute settlement between the states. An agreement to complex truck interaction between international trade and liberalization. Whether the WTO agreement will prevail over New Land's constitution and over other international agreement and ILO conventions to which New Lands is a party. The WTO agreement will prevail over New Land's constitution in terms of requiring a revision of the country's law and regulations. New Land's laws should be consistent with the requirements specified by the WTO agreement. Conventions and the recommendations are drawn by the representatives of governments, employers, and workers and are adopted at the annual International Labour Conference. Once a standard is adopted, member states are required under the Article 19(6) of the ILO Constitution to submit it their competent authority, normally Parliament, within a period of 12 months for consideration. The issue number 3 is whether the WTO law will have or should have direct effect in New Lands courts. WTO law does not require its direct effect in domestic legal orders, whilst the stances taken in these are diverse, showing that direct effect is not denied on the whole to WTO law. All the major trading members of the WTO deny it. The fact that in a case whether a WTO member does not comply and is targeted by trade sanctions, The economic factors who in practice bear the burden of these sanctions are deprived of any recourse may be considered unfair enough to question again the denial of direct effect. The analysis focused notably on the EU, whether the debate has expanded more than anywhere else, and concludes that direct effect should, even in the name of fairness or justice, be handled with caution. Why WTO? To arrange implementation, administration, and the operations of the trade agreement. Settlement of disputes, trade relations in issue deal with under the agreements. To provide framework for implementing of the results arising out of the deliberations which taken place at ministerial conference level. To manage effectively and efficiently to trade policy review, to create more together relationship with the nations in respect global economic. The relevance of WTO. The system helps promote peace. A system allows dispute to handling constructively. A system based on rules rather than power makes life easier for all. Freer trades cuts the cost of living. It gives consumer more choice and broader range of qualities to choice from. Trade raises incomes, trade simulations economic growth, and that can be good news for employment. The basic principles make the system economically more efficient and they cut cost.
Team OCC 11, you have 4 more minutes to go.
Yes, ma'am.
Judges, you may ask the participants any questions.
So, team, there is a question on the part of the opposition as to how globalization will ultimately affect the economic stability of the country of Newland. So, what do you have to say about that?
As we can say, WTO, it is the system which helps to promote peace. And the disputes are handled constructively in WTO. Rules make life easier for all, and the freer trade cuts the cost of living.
And what about the impact that it will have on the cultural integrity of the country?
Trade raises incomes, and so trade simulates economic growth in the country.
Yes, but what about the cultural integrity? There is one of the arguments from the opposition that cultural integrity will be affected.
Cultural, I don't think so. The cultural activities affected by the WTO.
Okay, but do you have any legal basis for saying any of these things, whatever you have talked about?
Sorry, ma'am.
Which provision of the WTO says that participation in the WTO will lead to economic development? Okay, thank you. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
No, ma'am.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Team OCC 11. You may now leave. Uh, Ma'am, we are waiting for the other team. Their time starts in another few minutes, so they'll join in accordingly.
All right, that's okay, Vaibhavi. That's okay, fine.
Yes, ma'am. Jasmeet, ma'am, I could not
Yeah,
hear
yeah,
you.
that's all right. I just said that's all right. We'll wait for the next team.
Okay, ma'am. Yes. Ma'am, the team is here. OCC 10 is here.
Yes, they can start.
The timer has started. Please go ahead. Team, we cannot hear you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You're audible now.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Team, you can begin arguing. Please go ahead.
Are we audible?
Yes.
The first issue. Yeah, whether the WTO agreement encompasses all WTO law or there is more to WTO law with the rights and obligations laid out in the WTO agreement. Yes. That it does it does it has extra which yeah, I'm sorry, we had a connectivity issue. Yeah. And also there is more in WTA in respect of, but further it will not lead to any equality discrimination situation, injustice, equality. If Newland wishes to be a part of WTO, and in view of second issue, no, it will not prevail over, and it will not prevail other inter agreements and ILO conversions to which Newland is a party, because WTO considers all the domestic laws of all the countries, which based on which the essential procedure takes place under the system. It's In view of third question,
A WTO should have a directive effect in a codes of a new land since while dispute arise while have one stop justice provision for there are a appellant body if it is not that effective enough to deal issue.
hello.
Hello.
Team, you have 5 more minutes. Please go ahead.
Ma'am, we are done with arguments.
Okay, will you be
Then
open
we
to
have
questions?
done,
Yeah. So your argument was that the appellate body can take up the cases. So can you elaborate on that?
uh, ma'am, very sorry.
Okay. Can you tell me any other argument apart from the legal issues why Newland should join the WTO or become the member of the WTO?
Students should join WTO.
Uh, because it will lead to the upliftment of the Newlands economy, and yeah, and all the
Industries and
and all the industries and trades. Hello.
Okay, that's it from my side.
Ma'am. Hello.
Hello, ma'am.
Team OCC 10, if you are done, you can leave the meet.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Vaibhavi, I have a question here. They had revealed their identity because their name of the law college was very evident from the background. So don't you think this amounts to disqualification? Many people they would not qualify even with the minimum marks given to them. But was it not mentioned in the rules that they can't disclose their identity?
Ma'am, it was mentioned to them.
All right. No issues.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, all right. Okay, if it was mentioned, obviously it amounts to disqualification because their name of the law college was quite evident from
Yes,
the background.
exactly, ma'am. Yes,
Yeah.
it was mentioned to them. Ma'am, your discretion, it's up to your discretion.
No,
If you,
anyways, they are not going to qualify the way they have performed. So that will not matter, but just wanting to know about how are you
yes,
applying rules also.
ma'am, the rules have been stated to them multiple times that the institution name must not be revealed. The team code
Yeah.
must be used, but they have violated that rule.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes. Ma'am, the next team would be here any moment.
All right. We will wait.
Team, please go ahead. The timer has start. Team, your time has start.
Ma'am, my teammates are joining.
Okay, but the timer has already start.
Yes, ma'am.
As you can see on the screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Shall we begin? Good morning to the panel. I am the first speaker and I'll be addressing the first and second issue in front of you. So the first issue that says basically is whether the WTO agreement encompasses all the WTO laws or there is more to the WTO law than the rights and obligations set out in the agreement. So saying that in confirmation, there is just one agreement that we're basically dealing here, and it is just as a general contract. And it is going further with different conditions set out to the parties, and nothing more than that, nothing more than those rights and obligations that are there for the parties itself, and nothing to encompasses and nothing to intervene into their domestic life, their domestic laws and everything. The main purpose of this agreement is to maintain the fair trade policies, is to maintain a free flow of trade and trade regulations in every country, because in some way or the other, we somehow, because of the cross-border limitations, our trade policies could not follow so well. Apart from that, because of certain different laws and regulations, we are not able to go further with every kind of foreign investments, policies, and the trade regulations, because every country has a different kind of trade policies for their own. Every country has something different and something to, something to limit. But with this agreement, what basically we're doing here is to make one agreement that gives you a right to go further with trade and different other investments in different countries without any some limitations basically. But again, with this agreement, basically what we are saying here is that the national laws, the national um, policies that a certain country has, they won't be hampered in any way. So the country, in simple words, is safe from different kind of, I would say, foreign acquisitions, foreign investment acquisitions. So there won't be any kind of effects by this agreement itself. Basically, in this agreement, the benefits to the parties are they would be given the rights and obligations and the duties, and that would be it. There won't be any kind of interference into their domestic laws, their domestic course, their domestic intervention. There won't be any kind of intervention through the trade organization to a country's organization and their constitutional rights as well. Apart from that, there was one question that came into light, that what if those laws or those policies that we are going further with intervenes with the constitution of a country or with different agreements that a country has signed. So replying into that, basically the agreements that has already been signed off, the conventions that any country has already been a party to, or any agreements that a country has been party to, that would be something that either the WTO agreement or those laws will supplement each other. There won't be any kind of overlapping. There won't be any kind of suppression of any laws by this agreement in any way, nor it will in any way be inconsistent with the constitution of the country. Because if it would be, it won't be in force itself. If we take the constitution of Indiana itself, it says article 13 says any law that is in derogation with the constitution shall be held null and void at initial stage. And the same thing is something that we are taking further in consideration, that will take into every, we will take every possibility into our consideration, that whether or not it can in any way would hamper a country's constitution. If that policy, if that one section, a particular clause is, we will immediately struck that down in the agreement itself. I would like to take 2 more minutes to finish my second issue, and then I can hand it over to my co-speaker. So now I would like to move further with my second issue, which says, will it prevail over Newland's constitution? In denial, I would like to say no, it won't, and it would be in the interest of Newland itself to accept the host of a new international obligation, because the core WTO rules and discipline, they're all about opening the foreign investment and foreign markets for the benefit of not just multinational but for the country itself. How it will benefit the country is a big question, because if when we open our foreign markets, we are basically generating more employment, we're basically generating more income to the country. In every manner, the country is going to be economically independent. And with a politically stable government itself in the country, it will gain the faith of the foreign investors, that the government of the country is stable. The investment is not going anywhere down the road, because there is a politically stable government, there are politically stable laws, and with the WTO agreements itself, they have some kind of I would say a faith in themselves while they're investing, and in the country itself in which they are investing. So taking the political and economic factors of investment, WTO agreement, when they are opening the foreign markets, when they're letting everyone to come to a country or in different countries for their own all cross-border investments, for their data and everything, it is not just going to help the country that is investing, but it is also going to help the country in which they are investing. They're going to help the people of that country. They're going to help generating employment, generating more income, and giving a better standard of life itself. Now, the one last thing that I would like to convey with this is, in any manner, WTO agreements are not going to intervene with the Newlands Constitution or any other different international agreements or conventions to which Newland is a party, because those agreements, those conventions itself, they are going to either supplement and complement the WTO agreement, or the WTO agreement will have everything they can to complement those conventions itself. I would like to hand over to the second speaker, if you may permit.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Your law will have, or the answer is that there may be a conflict between the national law and the provisions of WTO law. In this regard, it needs to be noted that if the provisions of WTO law are provided direct effect and can be important for the purpose of challenging the legality of national measures, the enforceability as well as the effectiveness of the measures will be improved significantly, as it will allow the members that states much less flexibility regarding the compliance with these provisions. Although it is the responsibility of each state member to fully execute the commitments undertaken by it. However, the members are free to determine undertaken by it. However, however, the members are the free to determine the legal means that are considered the appropriate by them for achieving the objective in the domestic system, and thus, if the individual agreement will prevail on the Constitution of New Land.
Team, your time is up. There are 22 seconds left. The next team is OCC02. The team is not here yet. However, their timer has already started, so they are losing out on the time. Judges, the team is still not here.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
So without wasting further time, I'll start quickly with my presentation. So trade is an aspect of human civilization that has been with it since its inception. Trade is also an important part in international law. Trade is something that is very important for peacekeeping and growth of a country. Now, World Trade Organization is an organization which works towards finding an even ground and facilitating two parties. And We, the Republic of Newland, are although small but an emerging republic with big aspirations. For a country to scale up at a global level, international trade is a must. And by engaging in trade with other countries, not only will be open to be invested by them, it will also create a mutual interest for the countries, and we will have an international stage, and we will have a friend on that international stage. WTO serves to provide many protections to smaller countries in the form of Doha Convention, STDs. Under it, we have Articles 17, 36, 37, and so on. And these agreements ensure that there is no undue bargaining imbalance and that special protection is provided to the members of WTO under this category. And by joining WTO, there are numerous advantages for developing countries. There is often a buyer-seller imbalance that we can cancel out by making sure that citizens can purchase what they want and have the access to purchase what they want, while the producers can produce and sell their goods outside where there is no market for that good in Newland. And in governance, technical assistance is also provided to enable LDCs to implement their rights and obligations under World Trade Agreements. And this is done with the cooperation of WTO and WIPO. And LDCs also have subsidiaries and countervailing measures for international trade. We also can put tariffs, and we can prevent the MNCs from exploiting the local market. And we can also put legislations for the rights of citizens. We can keep a minimum wage, and we can also ensure that there is a minimum standard salary structure so that there is no exploitation. And with this ever so important step, we will also have an opportunity not just to take the economic dynamics of our market, but while keeping the interest of the citizens in mind, we can also implement judicial and administrative changes as well.
Hi, this is Speaker 2. Now, we live in a world which is very competitive and economically interdependent on other countries. Now, no country can live in isolation, and that is why international trade or cross-border trade comes into picture. Now, international trade or the trade between two or more countries, it comes with a lot of benefits. So, first of all, it enables consumers to enjoy a greater variety of goods. It also expands the markets and creates employment apart from raising the standard of living as well. So it also makes use of abundant raw materials. For example, we know oil in Qatar. So Qatar has the distinction of an oil-rich country. So this is what international trade law does. So just because a country like Newland, so coming to the country of Newland. Now Newland, it has been said that it's a small country and also a low-income country. Therefore, it should not be restrained from acceding to the WTO on mere apprehensions that acceding to WTO would benefit MNCs or destroy the jobs or degrade the environment. Now, it has been seen that developing countries who have acceded to WTO, there has been a substantial growth in their profits and in their export growth as well. It has been also seen that countries like Newland, they have shown a substantial growth in their exports. So whether Marrakesh Agreement would prevail over Newland's constitution. Now we know the constitution of any country is supreme. No law can prevail over the constitution. And we have to see now in case there are a country is signatory to different agreements or conventions, we have to harmoniously interpret the provisions of those constitution, of those conventions or treaties, to see that the interest of every country is supreme. So therefore, so with this, therefore, New Land should accede to the WTO, I think, because we've seen, even past examples, or we've seen that countries have shown a very substantial growth, substantial increase in exports, and therefore the profits have also increased. And about the apprehensions that it would destroy jobs or degrade the environment, that is there, but all of this has to be weighed, and the best interest has to be given importance, of the citizens has to be taken into consideration.
Team, you may start. The timer is running.
Good afternoon. Are we good to go? I think we can start. Yeah. WTO is a system of rules dedicated to open, fair, and undistorted competition. It has rules on non-discrimination to secure fair conditions of trade. The WTO agreements aim to support fair competition in agriculture, intellectual property, services, and etc. So now I hand upon the presentation to the co-speaker. Irudinyaka, it's over to you.
Hello, I hope I'm audible. Am I audible? We understand that New Zealand is a newly rising and low-income developing country. Yet let me tell you, as my co-member has already mentioned, WTO provides ample, advantages towards developing countries, especially because of the MFN, that means most favored nation agreement, which means that equal access to all companies or all WTO members to the markets of all members of the organization will be done. Also, there'll be reduction of certain trade barriers, primarily tariffs and quantitative restrictions, which provide so increased trade between the members. More importantly, enhanced predictability, transparency of international trade. So basically that means WTO members, and including New Zealand, if it get the access to the membership, have bound their tariffs and cannot accept for good reason introduce other import restrictions. And it would ensure smooth trade transactions between the countries. Also, with the increased competitiveness by eliminate unfair trade practices between the countries, it would stimulate state primarily export subsidizing and dumping. So basically, this would create ample opportunity and platform for a newly rising and developing country like state of Midland to grab that opportunity and ensure smooth flow of financial and trade transactions between the countries. And also, let me tell you, the concerns are coming from the opposing parties that, okay, they have certain skepticism that this would create a detrimental impact upon the country. So some of the certain concerns that they have is basically whether what sort of an impact this WTO law has upon the country. So basically, let me tell you, this whole thing would be relied upon whether the country of New Zealand is a monist country or a dualist country. So if a dualist country, then unless a domestic law permits to apply that international obligations, those obligations do not have a binding impact upon the country. If it's monist, yes, once it became a signatory, that international obligations and international law and regulations will have the same effect of as it being a domestic law of the country. So this is the distinction that the opposing party has to understand. Also, they are making another contention which says that, okay, whether the WTO agreement encompasses all WTO law or there's more to WTO law, than the rights and obligations set out in the WTO agreement? Let me answer this question by telling you that there are different sources to WTO law. Okay, so the rights and obligations are derived from the Marrakesh Agreement mainly, and other than that, yes, there are certain other sources which are primarily there for the purpose of clarifications, right? So for the purpose of clarifications, as this slide very lucidly points out to you, there are certain resolutions which are passed by the Ministerial Conference and at the General Assembly, which do have impact upon WTO law as a different method of source. And also there are other customary international law which has sort of a persuasive impact upon the WTO member countries. Why I'm saying so, if we look into cases like US gas link case, where it was upheld that GATT agreement shouldn't be looked upon with clinical isolation, it opens up the floor to contemplate that customary international law plays a crucial role when it comes to in the purview of WTO law. Other than that, Vienna Convention also sort of, as the international convention, do have a very high impact upon WTO law as a separate source, because if we look into Article 27 of the Vienna Convention, we can clearly say that the country can't simply utilize a defense saying that, okay, we have domestic legislation which is incompatible with WTO law, and see, we can escape from the liability. So no, countries can't evade from the liability just because that there's a domestic law inconsistent with WTO law. And this Vienna Convention, Article 27, was upheld in numerous cases, including the Brazil aircraft craze and many other different cases. So yes, there are different sources to WTO law other than the WTO agreement. So that is the first issue at hand. The second issue at hand is whether the constitution and other international agreements and other ILO conventions to which a New Zealand is a party of, and what sort of a context do a WTO agreement will prevail over those laws. Okay, that is the second legal issue at hand. So let me clarify it by saying that, to alluding to one of the prominent examples that we can allude or refer and grasp from our neighboring country, India. Because India, in the patent case, what it basically contended was that, okay, we in the constitution, we are constitutionally barred from striking down a domestic legislation just because that it has certain incompatibilities with the international law. So my contention is also that our team, as a team, we believe that if the constitution as the supreme law of the country do have such a provision, such an analogous provision, which says that, okay, just because that it is incompatible with international law, we can't really strike down a domestic legislation, and gives that prominence towards the domestic legal sphere, we collectively believe as a team that, okay, that position should prevail, because at the end of the day, constitution is the supreme law of the country. And thirdly, whether W law will have or should have direct effect on New Zealand's courts. So this question should be answered in a peculiar manner. Again, this whole thing would depend on one of the legal concepts in public international law, which I enumerated earlier as well. We call it monism versus dualism theory. So if the country is dualist, if New Zealand is dualist, then if a domestic law act has incorporated explicitly those obligations, then it has a binding impact upon that country. So in that sense, if it's monist, definitely it has a binding effect. If it's dualist, if it has incorporated those WTO laws via domestic legislation, then it has a direct effect. And thirdly, as to say that whether it has direct effect on New Zealand's courts, let me elucidate this position by alluding to one of the cases, which is the European Community hormonal meat case. What happened in this case? The European Community came up with a restriction which says that, okay, we make a restriction upon importing, hormonal infused meat. And United States of America came up with a different idea, and they were opposed to this European Union restriction, and they contended that such a restriction would violate WTO principles. So what happened was that what should be rather argued that whether the countries can have the recourse to domestic courts over the WTO court. We know certainly that WTO has the valid authority to resolve such a dispute, but the question to be answered is that whether domestic courts has a say in those type of instances. In my opinion, and in our opinion as a collectively as a team, we believe that it is still contentious, it is still debatable. It is not being yet answered, and there's no lucid precise answer that one could come up with, and it's filled with so many issues. And I think, and we collectively as a team would rather think that domestic courts have a say in those type of instances, because let me further elucidate by saying that Article 16.4 says that the domestic law has to ensure that they are comply with all the rules and regulations and administrative measures with the WTO law. In that sense, domestic law should be complied with the WTO law. So domestic courts, in that manner, I would rather say, has a valid authority to resolve those disputes. So I think all the legal issues has been answered. And let me conclude our presentation by saying that there are many things. There are many rumors, skepticisms about WTO, and many people believe that it would create an adverse impact upon the world and especially upon developing countries. But still, developing countries have certain concessions. Sometimes they allow certain concessions to developing countries, giving considerable time to these developing countries to implement those measures. And those concessory measures definitely help out countries like Newland to brush up themselves and implement WTO measures just to ensure a smooth
Team,
flow
your
of
time
trade
is up.
transactions. Thank you.
You will now be removed from the meet. Judges, now we have completed the for group. We would be starting with the against group now. The team is here. Team, please commence. The against group is going to commence now. Judges, the team is not joining yet. They are losing out on their time. Team, as you can see, the timer is running. Please commence.
Team OCC 03 is representing against the proposition that the country of New Zealand is in favor of joining the WTO, and there were three issues which were presented to us. And the first issue primarily being that whether the WTO agreement encompasses all WTO law, or is there more to WTO law than the rights and obligations set out in the WTO agreement? The answer to which is yes, there is WTO agreement. There are particular laws which can be seen, as WTO encompasses of many guidelines and frameworks of agreements on various goods and services and the way the business is supposed to. But at the same time, we can also see that the dispute settlement body of the WTO also helps by giving us the rulings or the judgments which are given to us are usually serving as guidelines on the way the business should be conducted. And so the answer to the question, if the WTO agreement encompasses all the laws, or is there more to the WTO laws than the rights and obligations, is yes, there is more to WTO than just the agreements. And then the second issue being whether the WTO agreement will prevail over New Zealand's constitution and the other international agreements. And the answer to that is we can be taken by the Vienna Convention of the Law of Treaties, which states that the treaty is made by a country, then the country cannot go back on the onus of the treaty which is made. And it is also important to notice that the constitution of any country defines the sovereignty of the country. And if there is any statement or if there is any contradiction in the WTO agreement and in the New Zealand's constitution, then the constitution of New Zealand has to amend the laws which are present in the constitution according to the agreement of the WTO, which will in fact weaken the constitution. And so I stand clear on the point that New Zealand should not join the WTO, and the next continuation will be taken by my teammate. Thank you.
Good afternoon. The third issue, as continuation from my teammates' arguments, the third issue is whether WTO law will have or should have direct effect in Newfoundland's court. The answer to that is that the WTO law should not have any direct effect in Newland's courts, because even when the WTO laws are made, and even if we are a signatory and a member to the WTO agreement, even then the corresponding law, that is the WTO law, has to be made has to be corresponded in the municipal law as well. So when that is done, the municipal law, in technical terms, the municipal law will still prevail over the WTO law, because the same has to be resuscitated in the municipal law of a country. So to make a conclusion from all these arguments that have been made today, the WTO agreement should not prevail over the Newland's constitution, because of the sovereignty of the country has to be the priority over any international organization. And the WTO law should not have any direct effect in Newland's court because of the previously adjudged arguments. Because of these reasons, Newland should not be a member of the WTO. And that's what is going to be recommended to the Prime Minister in this case. So just to make sure that our argument has been has come across to the judges in this case. Globalization is not essentially the only way a country can move forward. The world trade can increase and should increase. The trade flow within the country should increase through its own, through the globalization of trade and business. That's not the only way that we should go about it. Domesticization of the trade is always not a good thing as well. So what we saw during the pandemic is that
everyone wanted to shut down all the trade like exports from each country so that they meet their demands from their own country. So what this essentially did was it limited the trade flow in the entire world, and that's what led to shortages and blocks. So instead of that, if globalization was like if globalization was not stopped, then it could have been like most of the trade flows that were blocked could have been continued, and there would be no increase in demand and lessening of supply. Any of these things would not have happened. So like the last point that we would might like to make is that WTO does not allow infant organizations and young or new startups to flourish in the environment that it has created, and hence the Prime Minister should not take heed to the NCBW's arguments that it should be
Team, your time is
the
up.
country
You'll be removed from the mid now.
Yeah, the country Newfoundland should be joined to the WTO.
Team, please go ahead. The timer has started.
Okay, ma'am.
Team, your time has started. The timer is running.
Okay, ma'am. In that case, the legal issue of first, whether the WTO agreement encompasses all WTO laws, or there is more to WTO laws than the rights or obligations set out in the WTO agreements. In that we frame the WTO encompasses all laws, but in that case, 15,000 people demonstrated in the street of New Nuns for the capital of Newland against the economic globalization free trade organization plan to join the WTO. Whether the agreement is totally binding on the people or isn't, the people are accepted that agreement willfully or not, or not. As per the rule of ILO convention, the ILO convention has stated the principle of the members of WTO. The fundamental principle of ILO convention, that fundamental principle in that case are violated. So the second issue frame my colleagues Neha, over to you.
Whether the WTO agreement will be prevail over the new land constitution and over other the international agreement, International Labour Organization Convention to which new land is the party, that WTO agreement will not the prevail on the over new land constitution, but also the prevail new land committees about the WTO new land binding a rule of the WTO. In any case, WTO has any obligation about
the new land, that the time of new land has the duty to stay all the obligations over the satisfied the WTO questions. In that the problem, WTO agreement does not the prevail on the new land constitution. WTO agreement inconsists with him as per the International Law Organization Convention. WTO agreement of new land validate fundamentals rights WTO members such a country.
Third question, whether the WTO law will have should directly affect on the new land score. In that case, WTO law have not directly effect on a DNA or whole of the WTO law. All the major trading member of the DNA.
In the third issue, the judicial enforceability of 1947 General Agreement on Traffic and Trade GATT and its successor World Trade Organization rules have never been an easy issue under the European laws, Union laws, while the formal statute of international treaties entered into the European Union, the direct legal enforceability of the such agreement, and particular the GATT WTO rules, has attracted a greating numbers of the courts of justice of the European Union, that is CJU. The present paper of SIG provide the overview of various terms that case law of CJU has been taken in executing what effect provisions of GATT WTO rules have in the EU legal orders. In that when people will examine whether the members of WTO such provisions have direct effect, and if so, whether the annulment of European Union acts conflicting with GATT. In that case, the peoples of New Land has been accepted the WTO rules or WTO membership. In that case, the peoples are binding on the WTO. When the New Land has not a member of WTO, that case WTO has not binding any obligations on that country.
Team, you have 3 more minutes to go.
Ma'am, we share all this or we come finish.
If the judges have any questions, they would ask you.
Nothing from my side.
Nothing from my side as well.
Team, you will be removed now. Judges, we are waiting for the next team.
Thank you, ma'am. Have a good day.
Team, your timer has started. Please go ahead.
I think it's camera. Okay. So good afternoon. We are discussing from the part of against, where I'm against the proposition that has been given. So I'll be discussing the first issue, and the second and third issue will be dealt by my friend. So the first issue speaks whether the WTO agreement encompass all the WTO laws, or there is more to WTO law than the rights and obligations set out in the WTO agreement. So before getting into the arguments, first I would say that the Republic of New Land is a developing lower middle income country with a population of 30 million people. It has a booming export oriented toy manufacturing industry and an upcoming steel industry. So here, if we look into New Land is in itself is a lower income economy country, and it has been affected in various way. And here, as per the demonstration that was organized by the New Land Coalition, it has speak about the environmental issues, consumer and human right that affects the human right organizations. So here, WTO agreement, if the New Land enters into WTO agreement, then it will be affecting the national economy and also the human rights in various manners. WTO agreement is committed to improve free trade amongst its member countries. So it is only benefiting those countries which is already developed countries, and it will hinder the growth of those industries or those nations which are in the developing phase of the developing phase. One of the main important point that I would like to mention is economist Ha-Jun Jung argues that WTO trade rules are like putting away the ladder they used themselves to climb up. So if we enter into the agreement of World Trade Organization, then it will hinder the growth of those industries which are developing, and also those countries which are in their developing phase. It will hinder them. And it can be, if I consider in the proposition itself, toy manufacturing company will sustain in spite of entering into WTO, in spite of following the WTO rules. But the steel industry, which is an upcoming industry, once it follows the rules of the WTO agreement, then there will be then it will have a downfall, because in various way, maybe in terms of tariff, in terms of import, export, there will be so many drawbacks that it will be facing. And those industries which are which are in small and infant industry, they will have to shut down. So yeah, and then the most favored nation principle, which speaks about in the case of gasoline case, where it says that equal treatment, there should not be any discrimination, but in practice there are discrimination that is happening. So by this I would like to conclude my.
Yeah. So I'll be dealing with the second and the third issue. The second issue reads as follows: whether the WTO agreement will prevail over New Land's constitution and over other international agreements and ILO conventions to which New Land is a part. So we are strongly of the opinion that if New Land becomes a member of WTO agreement, which New Land should not, because it will affect the economy, then WTO agreement will have some kind of influence and it will prevail over the New Land's constitution. So as we have discussed, so let me just point out a theoretical perspective of application of WTO at the national law. So if new land becomes a member of WTO, which we are strongly of the opinion that new land should not, then WTO will have to be taken into consideration while dealing with the constitution of new land. So there is this concept of here treaty convenient interpretation. The treaty convenient interpretation says that the national laws has to interpret according to the treaty. So if new land becomes a part of the WTO, then it has to interpret and it has to change as well as adopt its laws to become a member of WTO. So if new land is being a member, then it will have to change its laws according to WTO, which is going to affect its economy. New land is already a developing economy, and although it has got a booming export in terms of toy manufacturing industries, it will have to suffer some consequences if it gets into the open economy by being a member of WTO. Hence, WTO agreement should not prevail over the new land's constitution and over other international agreements and ILO conventions. I would like to cite an example for this, wherein in one of the TRIPS agreement, where few of the developing countries were the member under this agreement, the life-saving drugs were not made affordable for the developing countries, but the prices were increased under the same agreement, which was discriminatory. It favored the developed nations, but not the developing countries. Now, I'll be dealing with the third issue, that is whether WTO law will have or should have direct effect in new lands code. So no, the WTO law should not have direct effect in the new lands code. We already know that new land is a developing country. It should not squander its sovereignty and accept new international obligations. We know that new land already has many industries which cannot compete with the foreign markets. Hence, it has to try to boost its own industry as well as economy rather than getting into the international market. New land can make itself economically self-sufficient and then get into WTO. And WTO has a lot of drawbacks, maybe in terms of labor unions, in terms of environment, on the human rights organizations who are the part of this particular demonstration. So we are strongly of the opinion that new land should not be a member of WTO because it is going to hinder the economic progress as well as the industries. There might be a consequence where the industries also might have to shut down. So I would also like to cite two cases, that is the EC banana, European Commission bananas case, wherein there were restrictions imposed on bananas, and Germany questioned the same against the European communities. So there was a question whether Germany can question it in the European court when there is an international body, that is World Trade Organization, WTO. But the question still remained unanswered. So basically, WTO has to be taken into consideration, and WTO also takes into consideration to the national laws. But it is the nations who have to sacrifice and change themselves when they're a part of an international treaty. So hence, we are strongly of the opinion that new land should not be a part of the WTO agreement, as it will hinder its economic growth and progress. Yes, thank you.
Team, only 1 minute to
Yeah,
go.
so if I would continue with the third issue, that is whether WTO law will have direct effect in new lands code. So considering the application, so every domestic legal systems are very diverse. They have their own system of regulating trade and policies. But when they become a part of an international agreement like WTO, they have to change themselves. They have to adopt themselves, which will create more obligation on their side. So rather than having more rights and more advantages, they will have to suffer major drawbacks. So if new land, which is already developing in nature, if it becomes a part of WTO, it will have to suffer, as well as the industries, the people, in terms of the labor, in terms of the environment, as well as human rights. So it is better that it does not, regulates its own trade in its own way, rather than being the part of the WTO agreement. Yes, thank you.
Team, your time is up. Team, go ahead, your timer has started.
Yeah, Vasavi, I guess we can, speaker one, please proceed. Sorry, you're not audible.
Team, please go ahead, the timer is running.
Sure. Until my speaker one can sort out the issues, I shall be addressing bench for the time being. Respected President and all the members, I shall be addressing issues number 1 and 3. My fellow speaker one would be addressing issue number 2. As such, the first issue with regards to the case is whether WTO agreements, does it only confine to rights and obligations? This would be the particular questions which will be raised by the chair speaker of NCBW. So we advise the Prime Minister to approach this in a manner to state that no, WTO is not only confined to just rights and obligations, but rather it has a wider scope to present itself with. That is with regards to Article 3 of WTO law, which talks about functions, the various functions that it can perform. Article 5 talks about the relationship that it can have with that of other intergovernmental and non-governmental organizations. And Article 9, which talks about decision-making matters, that is with regards to disputes and all the other aspects. And then you have Article 10, which talks about the amendment process, and Article 16, which talks about the miscellaneous provisions, which have a wider scope in that perspective, and Article 12 also, which talks about the accession to the WTO. So in all, we can say that not only is it limited by just one aspect, but it has a wider scope to present itself with, and it is not only limited to rights and obligations. Yes, and in order to do so, I'd like to quote a few examples of India, one of our nations in the World Forum, which has Article 253 as a provision which allows it to incorporate various treaties within its laws to make it domesticated as such. And my arguments or what my suggestions towards the Honorable Prime Minister for the third issue would be, that is with regards to whether WTO has effect on courts, that is new land court system. So to begin with, as such, the provisions for this clause would be coming under Article 16 clause 4, 16.4 of the WTO law, where we see that it said specifically that it is up to the courts to adopt such practice of taking up cases. We have two case laws which can be expected, that is the European Union's banana case, as well as the hormone beef case in Europe. But as of now, there is no such clarification yet given, because it is still ongoing in that matter. So we need to get some clarification. And one last example would be that international laws that can be made use of in the Indian or domestic courts is the use of one more example of Indian case law, that is with regards to the Vishaka judgment, where the particular law in that country was not available, but it was able to make utilization of it from the UN UDHR provisions. So what I'm trying to state is that yes, we can make use of international laws to be interpreted in Indian courts. So that would be my submissions as speaker number 2. My speaker number 1, if possible, could take over. I believe.
Hi panel, my speaker number 1 is not able to unmute. It's giving an error that it has the host is not allowing the participant to unmute themselves.
Team, you can mute and unmute yourselves. It is not up to us. That autonomy is given to the teams. So there is no such setting that we are restraining the teams from not speaking or speaking.
So I'll continue with the
as I can see, speaker 1, you are still on mute. You have not unmuted yourself. We cannot hear you. Still we cannot hear you. Now you are unmute, but still we cannot hear you. Is your mic working? Researcher, you can speak, right? So can speaker 2. You have unmuted yourself,
yeah, sure,
and you can speak.
So basically, we wanted also to highlight and will ask the Prime Minister, because since when we allowing the globalization into the new land state, it will also somewhere affect the country, because it's already a less developed country. So this will help the transfer technology, whatever the traditional knowledge they acquire, that can be taken over by the developing countries, and there's somewhere a negative impact to the countryman again, because it will affect the jobs also which is there in the present country. So this is what few of the suggestions we definitely like to give to the Prime Minister, so that they can think before the signing of the agreement. Also, as we see, in the current developing states, has always been trying to more of the exports that we do from the other countries. And being already this is a small country, so once they go to the globalization and accept the WTO, the people of the country will start doing more of the imports rather than making try to have the self-development. So this will somewhere again affect the development of the country. This is what I wanted to add in to what Arsalan have already mentioned.
Yes, please. Ma'am, if I may just point out, first speaker is getting this as a notification. If you can please have a look. I'm not sure if you, it is OCC09, just without speaker 1, that device, the new device which you connected with. If possible, could you please have a look? It would be really appreciated.
Thank you, team, for showing that that picture. However, there once again I'm repeating, there is no such setting which is made which prevents any team from speaking. So that probably it is the issue with the speaker one's mic or her settings itself, because as I'm stating, there is no such setting made on our end.
Okay, sure. Okay, in that case, I'll conclude with my closing statement.
Yes, please go
for both the speakers. We request the Honorable Prime Minister to consider both our arguments as presented by our researcher, putting words of Speaker 1 and myself as Speaker 2 on these major issues which we had presented for Prime Minister. I hope he'll be able to counter the chair of NCBW in an ad way, where we can prove to them that joining the World Trade Organization will not be an issue in as such any case or any way possible. Thus, we would like to present this, and these are our suggestions and also our recommendations. With this, we all would like to thank the chair as well as the Prime Minister and the fellow members for giving us the time. Thank you very much.
Team, are you open to questions?
Yes, please, ma'am. You please go ahead.
Yeah, so one of your arguments was that it is going to affect the jobs in Newland. Can you elaborate on that very quickly?
Yes, most probably, most definitely. Does the researcher have to say?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so basically, ma'am, what I was trying to say, suppose since I already mentioned that the countries, at least developed country and the small countries, they have their own traditional knowledge of doing the certain works and the business, whether you talk about the farming or the agriculture work. So when they sign the agreement, the more the cooperation will come. So the developed countries will try to provide more of the services on the developed goods in that particular country, and somewhere the traditional knowledge which is being used will get diluted in the particular country. This and thus leading to the downfall of the jobs.
Your
Sorry,
time
ma'am.
is now.
Just to add on, I'll just put one word, if possible. Using
With
Article
regard to
5, it also.
OCC 09 Speaker 1, I would request you to join at 2:30 so that you know that it was not a fault on the organizers here. It was something which was a technical glitch probably on your part, because once again I'm repeating, there was no such setting done on our part. This is for the first time throughout. Now you are the third last team which is coming in, and this is the issue which has been faced. So please, if you want to resolve this
We
issue,
understand now.
be present at 2:30. All right?
Sure,
Thank
no
you so
issues.
much
We
team, for
understand.
your time. Your
Thank you so
time
much,
is
ma'am.
now.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
We may leave, ma'am.
Just the next team would be back here. You may
Okay,
leave.
can we leave them? Sure.
Yes. Team, your time has started. Please go ahead. Team, you are the only team.
Yes, ma'am.
Team, your time is running. Please go ahead.
Excuse me, ma'am. Sorry.
Yes.
Ma'am, is there a screen visible?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Tanish?
I can see myself on the screen, so can you just turn on the PPT which is
Start
there?
now, start. Tanish, you can go now.
Actually, the PPT is not visible. Okay, yeah, fine. This will do. So beginning up with the World Trade Organization, and am I audible to everyone?
Yes, please go ahead.
Am I audible? Can I go ahead?
Yes, your
Yes.
time is.
Okay, so beginning up with the World Trade Organization and about its history, I would like to start with when the establishment was done of WTO, the World Trade Organization. Like in 1995, World Trade began its life like on 1st January 1995. So it's a trading system that is merely a half a century old. But since 1948, the General Agreement on Trade had provided the rules for system of like we can say trade along the different countries of the world. So coming on the topic which we were allotted, the new land. So new land, I would like to start that new land is a developing lower middle class income country, and it is mainly a developing a nascent democracy, which yeah, okay, you can stop it. Which is a lower middle income country, export and is the only thing which exports toy manufacturing country. Uh, and 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 upcoming steel manufacturing industry. So at Newlands Point, there was am I audible? So there was a protest of by 50,000 people against the government's plan to join free trade and WTO, which the people opposed that it would violate the rights of. Hello.
Please go on.
Uh, I need the screen. Uh, am I visible to the video?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So there was a protest of 50,000 people against the government's plan, which is a nascent democracy, that is the new land country having its constitution. So there was a protest by these 50,000 people against the government's plan to join the World Trade Organizations, as the saying of these people was that these would affect the various rights of the developing country, like, and who is still on verge of medium small industries, and which is still developing in their manner. So WTO dominates who do, WTO, although purportedly a democratic institution, the WTO is dominated by leading countries. So like we have a knowledge about it, the WTO is mainly, like we say, the working of WTO is mainly done by the developed nations. So there are binding agreements on this. There are intellectual property related agreements uh, which cut this growth of developing countries if there's any issues related to property rights. So it becomes a difficult for developing nations to directly counter these developed nations made agreements. So like we all know, WTO as it is, it becomes biased for these developing countries to get through these agreements made by them. So, however, WTO has often been criticized for trade rules which are still unfavorable towards developing countries. Like I've mentioned, uh, these developing countries, they have their own set of rules, they have their labor organizations, and once this trade organization agreements are binded upon them, it becomes difficult for them to function. And also, many set of rules are laid in upon the governments of that country, like we see in this case of Newland. So, free trade may prevent developing economics and develop their infant industries. Like I just said, Newland is a country which is still developing. It has their medium, small industries. It is only just toy manufacturing import country, like it is, and it is have a developing steel industry. So it will be a very difficult in terms of these developing nations for them to practice these trade agreements. WTO is being overshadowed by the new trade deals. Yes, difficulty in making process to bind these agreements upon the whole nation. It will be difficult to assess these uh, agreements, the binding trademarks, trade rules, and etc. And which will take a lot of time and also will stop side by side the industrial growth of the new land. Uh, parallelly to these agreements. WTO is committed to protecting for fair competition. Yes, it has fair competitions, but these rules are subsidized rules. So at some point of the other, the ecosystem, the labor rights are violated and hampered. So from now, I would like to continue with my next team member. She can proceed further.
Thank you, Tanish. अरे बस स्क्रीन शेअर कशी व्हायची अरे शांत बस अरे पीपीटी
Team, your time is up. Team, your time is up. You will be removed from this meeting now. Judges, thank you for your patience. We are waiting for the last team here. Judges, we are waiting for the last team to join in. Once this timer runs out, the team will lose their time. Team 6, please start. As you can see, the timer is already running.
Is it audible right now, ma'am?
Yes.
Yes. Can can we proceed further, madam? Hello, ma'am.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Before we go into the matter, madam, I'd like to draw the attention of the situation at hand here. So first, it is important to identify that Newland has a population of 30 million people, where 50,000 people were demonstrated, showing their denial for the accession of the WTO, and it. Whereas the labor force of Newland is clearly not happy with the fact that Newland is going to sign the WTO agreement, because it is Newland is lower middle income country with a population of only 30 million people. So with having this into consideration, getting into WTO would definitely open Newland in the open market, open international market, which will not be favorable for the local industries of Newland. So bearing that in mind, there are very important legal concerns that has to be looked into in why we go on a stance that Newland is actually globophobe. The first one is with regarding to the legal document of whether WTO rights and obligations will be imposed to Newland. So first and foremost, ma'am, once you exceed madam, first and foremost, once you exceed into making exceed the WTO agreement, it is binding on all aspects of law. And in that sense, it is to be noted that the rights and obligations will also have to be adhered by the state Newland. So in this sense, we feel that it can squander the sovereignty. And to discuss on the second point, I'd like to hand over it to my next speaker, Purnima.
Hello, I'm being the second speaker of the OCC 06, and I will draw my attention for the second point, which is mentioned this WTO agreement will prevail over Newland's constitution and over the international agreement and international labor conventions are being affected by the WTO agreement, which is supposed to sign by the mentioned government, which means which has been mentioned in the given scenario. First of all, in this, before particular agreement is acceded, it generally takes into consideration the legal provisions which are being included in the constitution of the new land, and also when it comes to a monism country or a dualism country, regardless being a monism country or a dualism country, this Newland is being affected. That's why the Prime Minister is being over more concerned about the WTO, which he is supposed to sign. And the second point is whether this signing document, the agreement, WTO, is being affected over the International Labour Organization Convention, the agreement, when it comes to the rights of the employees and also the rights of the people who are doing the businesses of the Newland are also being affected by the WTO, because WTO is not the only agreement which is framed the international trade laws, and far more apart from this particular agreement, there are things to refer when it comes to the trade organizations agreements. And also the third point I will be handing over to the my previous colleagues that was presented the previous point.
So, so to sum up the issue with the last matter at hand, it is a question whether regarding to the WTO will have direct effect on Newland. With regarding monist or dualist, once a particular an international agreement such as a WTO agreement has been signed, it should make all arrangements to facilitate the international agreement into the domestic laws. And so this will limit the interpretation given at a local or domestic level, because any interpretation given will always have to be with reference to how the international treaty has been signed. So this approach is rather known as treaty convenient interpretation. One of the big criticisms on this interpretation is that it compromises
Team,
on
your time
the
is
state.
up. Team, your time is up.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Do we get a closing statement, ma'am?
No, your time is up.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, panel, for your time. We have now come to the end of the competition. I request you to send this score sheet either via email or WhatsApp to me. The valedictory ceremony would commence at 3 p.m. today. Thank you for your time. We are really grateful to you. If possible, we would be privileged if you could join the valedictory ceremony. Thank you. ma'am, any questions or anything that you want to go ahead? If not, then we can end this meet.
Thank you, Vaibhavi. Thank you very much. For the valedictory session,
Yes, ma'am.
the link.
Ma'am, for the valedictory ceremony, the same link. So throughout the day, we have been using the same link.
All right, great.
Yes, ma'am. See you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The panel may log out of the meet. Thank you.
So this is a very critical time now for us because we have to get everything with the order and all that before 3. 3 o'clock Pinero will join.
Yes, sir. So I'll tell that OCC to join in.
OC9.
OC9. Call them in.
What are you going to tell?
So they admit. A researcher, can you call the other team member? I think it was speaker 1, whose mic, who could not speak.
Yeah, actually they were being kicked out from the group, so that's why they are not able to join.
They were kicked out of the group, is it?
Yeah. I'll just message them again.
Yes, please do. Even I have messaged in the group that they can join in now.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, ma'am, they are still not able to join because they've been kicked out. It's showing that they cannot join because it was been kicked out.
Okay. Okay.
Can you please help, ma'am?
So we are starting the meet again. Ask them to join in then. Okay?
Okay.